Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name's Sterling. I'm your host. So we are all aware that Justin Trudeau didn't go to the Calgary Stampede. We're also know that the Pierre Poilievre's visit to the Stampede was a resounding success. And even though Jagmeet Singh also avoided going to Alberta, despite his party being in the middle of a leadership race in Alberta, some high-ranking members of the Liberal Party did, in fact, make an appearance at the Calgary Stampede, though they didn't use their mainstream media sellouts to advertise it. They quietly put out some pictures that looked like they were taken by staffers, and they put them up on X, and they want to make you believe that they're there for you, that they're the big superhero. Of course, the Liberal Party is having an overall complete breakdown when Ipsos is projecting that Trudeau may have slipped to fourth place in the polls. As a result, they are trying to create all kinds of monsters under the bed, the boogeyman in the closet, which might work on people who are not necessarily, whose first language isn't necessarily English and who are not savvy to the nuances of the way politics works in North America. And so by drilling that fear and by drilling that dread into them, they will easily try to convince them to which way to vote. And of course, they want to pass legislation that allows people who are just here as not citizens to cast votes. So what they've done is they've purchased more housing, more temporary housing for asylum seekers in Ottawa at the taxpayers' dollar, millions of dollars. However, before we get into it, I would encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all your socials. I'm really trying to grow this channel. I have memberships. If you want to support the channel that way. All right, let's get into it. So the first one I'll show you is Chrystia Freeland quietly going to the Calgary Stampede and making pancakes. We can see here in this photo that she decided she was going to put on a Tim Hortons, a branded apron, which is not supposed to, is something that the politicians are not supposed to be doing. And they made a pancake quietly, though. I mean, there doesn't even look like there's any people there. Like I say, the picture looks like it was taken from a cell phone. And then, of course, here she is with those, what I think they're called barrel riders. They do some pretty cool stuff on their horses. Like they run in a circle around the barrel and they do it up to speed. They could be tricksters, but I think that those are barrel riders. Where she's sitting, I don't even know, on the fairway. Like I said, it looks like it's just a picture taken from a cell phone. But the point that I'm saying is she's just trying very quietly to take over the position of prime minister while she says nothing, right? We didn't hear about it. There was no announcement on it. She just showed up, put on a couple of dresses and took some pictures and then quietly got back in the SUV and probably secretly hopes that it'll be enough to sway people to support her for her run for the leadership of the Liberal Party. In the comments, though, there are some pretty strong words. You delusional, you and Justin have ruined this country. You are going to freeze my bank account now, you communist Nazi. Wait, where's the other Randy? Which is a reference to Randy Bassano's corruption, where he used his position to forward his company. Sit down, Freeland. Every time you open your patronizing mouth, billions of dollars we don't have get wasted. You bankrupted our country. It goes on. I really like this one, though. Happy Stampede, Twitchy, with the picture of the horses trampling the trucker convoy, that poor lady that got ran over by the horses, which is a big deal. Horses are very heavy things. They're not light. Two of the other funny ones from the comments. You are cold and cruel if you vote Conservative and not for our corrupt and treasonous party. And then, of course, this one where Klaus Schwab has been superimposed over. People are creative. I'm telling you, it's pretty funny. Okay, so switching from the Liberal Party over to some of the decisions that they're making and some of the policies that they've tried to enact it. Natasha Live Free or Die says the city of Montreal is poised to pay $11 million for a nunnery it plans to make into a transitional housing, its latest purchase or lease to provide homes to the increasing number of newcomers to Ottawa and relieve pressures on overburdened shelters. Members of the Finance and Corporate Services Committee approved the deal on Tuesday, days after homeowners found out the property off of the boulevard and found out about it. is in East Ottawa found out about it. So the neighbors found out about it, and then a couple days later they closed on the deal. That all of these people are now that they just all of a sudden rezoned the building and turned it into a shelter. Shelters where people are going to have. I mean, if you've ever lived in a shelter, you know that it's not like they say on TV, and it's not one of these women's kind of shelters where they're trying to help you get back on your feet. It's just, we let you sleep here, now go out into the world and don't come back until supper time. So they're left with nothing to do but wander around. They got nobody to, there's no guided tours. They're not sending them to job locations. They're barely able to be in the country. There's nothing they can do. They're waiting for all their paperwork to get passed so they can get a social insurance number so they can pay taxes on any jobs they do have. This is just people wandering around your neighborhood because they have nothing else to do. I mean, that's how shelter life works. It's not like you see on TV or in Hollywood where everybody's like going to work and they're just hard done by. This is people who are just basically keeping the elements off of their head. And the government is trying to exploit these situations so they can turn those people into votes, just like you see in other votes that are happening around the world. Even though people get the more popular vote, they don't get as many seats. That's a different video. D says our own Canadian majority that did and still are contributing to the tax fund are living on the street. Trudeau rushing 5,000 families in from Hamas needs to stop. We need a complete moratorium on immigration. Borders must be closed. So you can see, well, you realize that this is not fair. This is not the way that we want our country to be, that they're giving all of these breaks and all of these advantages to people who were not born here. I'm not telling you that I have an issue with them coming to Canada. I have an issue with them being brought in. They're not being properly vetted. Some of them could have committed heinous crimes. And they're being given money, and there's efforts, and our society is turning on tax dollars to assist those that are not like they're getting put to the front of the line over people who are homeless and who are in the shelter system now. Why are they being put to the front of the line? Why? Because you imagine a nunnery is a building with one large chapel, a kitchen, commercial sized kitchen, and then a series of bedrooms. So, I mean, you imagine that in your mind, right? There must be just a lot of dormitory situations. So why would that not be given to the people that have been needing or on the street for a year and a half? Why would that not be given to people who are in the homeless encampments? Why is that given to people who just come here right now without waiting for the due process and walk up to the board and say, I'm here to claim asylum because I don't like Trump? That doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem right to me. And because the Liberals keep saying that, it doesn't seem fair. Okay, so like I told you, the Liberal Party is melting down all over Twitter. They are in a bad way. And the newest one is that Pierre Poilievre is trying. There was an Ipsos poll that came out that Canadians are no longer, that they have run out of patience with the LGBT community. It says here on the right, Ipsos 2024 survey found 12-point drop, a 12-point drop in the number of Canadians who support queer people being openly invisible in society, which that's not true. I've read that poll. What the poll actually says is, do you still support them in the way that you've always, like, do you really believe that the government should be giving them more supports? And people are like, listen, I'm hungry and I'm homeless. I don't have that kind of patience anymore. They should just simply fall in line like the rest of us do. And the misinformation that the Liberal Party is trying to bring onto you is because they want to scare you. That's the idea. They're trying to create this monster under the bed. The fact is that there was never a gigantic push to stop people from being LGBT, right? So let's remember that, right? This is something that began in the 80s. And any time that you try to talk about this monster under the bed, this boogeyman in the closet, you have to start going back you have to reach back into history. You have to reach back into countries that are not Canadian. I mean, there are some very predominant and very proud homosexual individuals or LGBT individuals who were married in Canada because Canada was one of the first countries in the world to give them the right to marry. So you can't go talking to me like there's a big deal, like there's some conservative push to stop it. Nobody cares. But they do care about being homeless. They do care about the state of the economy. They don't care who you have inside of your bedroom, but they absolutely care about whether or not the government is messing with their bank accounts. course, they have to try and scare you because they don't want you to vote for them. So they have to scare you. That's the only tactic that they have left. They can't reason with you. They know that their economic problems have destroyed the country, and they're just hoping that, despite the fact that you know, what in my mind I can't grasp is where, if you're in the LGBT crowd, do you not want a good economy? Like, don't you want your money to go further? Don't you want your groceries to be less expensive? Don't you want to take all of that 2 income, no kids stuff and whatever that's called and spend it on something that is, you know, make your money go further? I mean, doesn't matter, does it? Other, like hunger, homelessness, they don't care about your preferences. Anyway, this one here got really bad, but I'll just comment this one. A new poll showed Trudeau Liberals could fall to 4th place behind the Bloc, which makes sense if you understand how many seats the Liberals hold that are in Quebec. Like if you're familiar with Quebec politics, what you have to understand is that they rarely vote Conservative. There was that one time they voted NDP, but for the most part, since the 70s, since the creation of the Bloc Québécois, the separatist Bloc Québécois, they bounce between voting for the Liberals and they vote for the Bloc Québécois. And they have traditionally voted for the Liberal Party since the inception of Quebec. And it's the same idea in Quebec. It's like you vote Liberal so that you don't have to vote for the English, instead of it being, you know, the right way, and they just say don't vote for the English. So they bounce back and forth. They don't get a lot of variation, which is why the Bloc Québécois for a couple of years in Canada was actually the official opposition. Anyway, as you can see, the people have no sympathy for them whatsoever. Okay, so now we'll move on to a story about the Doug Ford and the LCBO. They went on strike because the Ontario has decided to sell wine coolers, I believe, in the corner stores. Now, many of the country sells alcohol in the corner stores. Quebec does it all the time. They even sell wine. And for those of you that are not aware, the LCBO stands for the Liquor Commission Board of Ontario, and they don't really sell beer. They sell only alcohol that is not beer. In Ontario, they have a separate store for beer. They call it the beer store. And then every other form of alcohol, for the most part, don't hold me to it, but you get it. Every other kind of alcohol is sold in what's called the Liquor Commission, the LCBO. Now, because they are deciding to sell some of this kind of alcohol into the beer store, the Liquor Commission has elected to go on strike. I don't know what they hope to accomplish by that. I think that they are worried that all of a sudden we're going to start selling rye in the corner store. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a drink in more than 2 decades, so I don't really go to the liquor store anymore. However, Doug Ford did a little video where he talks about there's an app for that'll show you all the places that you can buy locally manufactured alcohol in the province of Ontario, which I think is spectacular. I think that we have had enough of spending our money on gigantic corporations. I mean, you go into a liquor store, you go into a beer store, there's 28 brands of something, but it's owned by the same 3 outfits. So really, all you're doing is giving your money to multinational corporations. Doug Ford put out this video, which he's apt to do, and you can see the link there, where it'll show you not only where you can buy beer in whatever particular town you happen to be in, but it'll show you the name and address of the manufacturer. It'll show you when it's local. It's pretty awesome. So I encourage you all to go to this link right here, ontario.ca page where to buy, and it will give you all of the places in Ontario that you can buy alcohol that's not in an LCBO. I mean, it might make the union mad, but let's be straightforward. Unions are kind of spoiled under the socialist way of thinking, and people don't care. They just want to buy something to have a drink, to have a barbecue, to have a nice time with people. They don't want to get involved in all your politics. They're so sick and tired of it. They just want to go to work, go home. They want to live. They want to be happy. They want to take care of their families. And they're tired of every time they turn around, somebody trying to draw them into yet another fight that they know is not a fair fight. They don't care about it right now because you're not listening to both sides of the argument. You only want it your way and your way only. And people are, I'm sorry, but people are upset at that, especially Canadian people. One thing Canadians cannot stand is an unfair fight. Everybody knows Canadians root for the underdog all the time. Okay, so this last one is just pathetic. The Liberal Party losing their mind, right, has tried to say, we just found an invitation to Pierre's 20th anniversary soiree. It's going to be a past for us. And then if you look at the things that they write on here, it's the guest list is Alec Jones, Diagolon, conspiracy theorists of all kinds, which is kind of a weird thing to say when you consider that many of the things that they called conspiracy during the pandemic have turned out to be true now that the censorship has been moved out of the way and enough people have had taken a look at it. So they should be careful talking that way. The Freedom Convoy is invited to the soiree. I'll go. The gun lobby, which is weird, the weird thing to say. The American far right is going to go to our Canadian political party. I mean, come on. That's one of my biggest issues with the way that the far left operates. They are fascinated. They are completely and utterly fixated on the United States of America. I don't live in America. None of the decisions that the Americans make impact me really, not really, except for the tax on the border. That kind of stuff can have an influence. But really, there's more taxes in Canada than there'll ever be coming out of the United States on a few duties and tariffs. So I think that it's enough, right? It is, however, all of the stuff that they want the far left to believe will somehow impact their life. They want to believe that they want to make their hardcore supporters believe that Canadians have something wrong with they've turned on abortion or anyone wearing a straight pride shirt, because that was one of the pictures that I showed you earlier. Now, my issue with that, about this straight pride shirt thing, which I cannot stand, the Liberal Party says to you that if you don't agree with their politics 100%, we will not represent you. If you don't agree that people, why? Because the person's wearing a straight pride shirt, does that mean that they have anything against gay pride? Doesn't mean that. It just means that they have pride in who they are. They're allowed to do that. Isn't that the entire argument that you're making? Isn't your whole entire argument is that you're allowed to be proud of yourself even though you might be LGBT? So if you're LGBT and you're allowed to be proud of yourself, if you're just straight, heterosexual, you should also be allowed to be proud of yourself. So why do you care if they have that issue? But you care because what you're trying to do is drive a wedge. What you're trying to do is say to yourself that if the person doesn't, because the person doesn't think the way that you are, they must be filled with the obvious monster under the bed. But what you expose, Liberal Party, X-person, Twitter person, is that you can't stand anybody who doesn't agree with you. You can't stand anybody who you don't agree with. And you will offer no support to truckers. You will offer no support to any of the people that you don't agree with. So why are you trying to convince the world that you're democratic in any way, shape, or form? You are clearly and utterly an ideologically driven individual who will only do one thing, and anybody who doesn't agree with them you don't have any time of day for it. Well, that's not democratic policy. I'm not even sure what that is, but I know that it's not a good way to go about trying to call yourself a political party. And it's certainly nothing more than misinformation and disinformation about who feels what about whom. You're clearly not qualified because you can only see one side of the argument. What you don't seem to understand is that you represent all Canadians, not just those you agree with. The more you post this nonsense, the more you are pushing Canadians away. There are only two ways to lead. You either divide and conquer or you build and unite. And of course, that one got a lot of 4,000 likes. The post itself got completely obliterated, ratioed, as Faulkner likes to call it. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you next time.